So with great joy, great appreciation, I invite you to step up, Dr. Carolyn.
Good morning. We need to shorten that. It's like, enough already. Well, here I am again. This is really exciting, and it's really like old home week, isn't it? Oh my gosh, take 4. What was your name before that?
Dolly Mamas.
Oh, the Dolly Mamas, of course. How could I forget that? But that's not the only thing I forget these days. Okay. All right. Well, here we are. When you were a child, caught in the act of misbehaving, did you remember someone, your parents, your relatives, maybe your Sunday school teacher, saying to you, "You better mind. You better mind." Or when you went out to dinner, like my mother told the 6 of us when we went out on a rare occasion, "Mind your manners." Or when I was sassy, she said, "Mind your mouth." Anybody else? Okay. So that word used in that sense meant to obey or to do what someone else said. And if you don't, you'll be in trouble. So as a child, I experienced all of the above. And unfortunately, I grew up believing most of what my parents, teachers, and authority figures in my life told me to do, and trying to be as good, just as good as I could be by minding what I had been taught. Mostly that I needed to remember how important it was what other people would think about me, or that I should never show off or get a big head, don't be conceited, or I should always put other people first, or I would be considered selfish, and God forbid I didn't want that to happen. Okay. Makes me feel so much better that I'm not alone in this. Okay, the list goes on, and that's what I thought minding meant. To always pay attention to what others were thinking, and then to adjust my thinking accordingly, and my behavior as well. So it's a sad case, but here I am today, a product of that. But I found the science of mind. Hallelujah. What a lifesaver. My teacher, Dr. Earl Barnum, used to tell us, find out what your business is, and then mind it. What your real business is, and mind it. And at first I thought that I should stop paying attention to what other people were saying and doing and pay attention to my real business, which was paying my bills on time, making sure we had adequate insurance for the house, the cars, our health, planning nutritious meals for my children. And of course, they were certainly most of my business, so I properly worried about their schoolwork, whether they were getting along with their friends, seeing to it that they were happy, and if they weren't, it was my business to fix it, or at least help them in some way or another to get along with their little friends. I also thought my business was to please my mother, my husband, my friends, my boss. I tried to second guess what they wanted so that I could just be the best mind reader of all. And this way of minding my business became very stressful. So, if only I had known what I learned in the science of mind, that everybody, even a child, has within themselves the capacity to have their own answers. If I could just see that within them, give them the freedom to have their choices, with some guidance, of course, with children, but I didn't need to control everything around me. What a relief it was to discover that I didn't have to be mother of the universe. So, when I understood that these things were important, of course I needed to be there for my children, my husband, my family. But I had the proverbial cart before the horse. And I discovered then that to mind my business, I needed a new definition of that word. I needed to find out what that really meant, and then begin to use it from a new state of awareness. And so I found the answer in the Science of Mind Dictionary. It actually is the glossary, and this is what it says. No one has ever seen mind or spirit. The only proof we have of mind is that we can think. Actually, there is no such thing as your mind, my mind, his mind, her mind, and God's mind. There is just mind. One mind, in which we live, move, and have our being. Now, I know we've all heard that if you've read the Science of Mind textbook at all, or you've been coming here for a while. And then he goes on, Dr. Holmes goes on to write, mind is potential energy. Thought is the dynamic force which produces the activity for manifestation. I'm going to say that again. Mind is potential energy. Thought is the dynamic force which produces the activity for manifestation, for what we demonstrate in our lives. Our mind, that point in God consciousness which we call our mind, is as much of truth as we will allow to flow through us. But that thing that we call our mind usually is our ego, which stops the flow of divine wisdom, of infinite intelligence, of this God power that has the capacity to reveal through us whatever it is that we need to know. So fortunately for me, I continued to study the science of mind and found out that some of my thoughts about myself and my life were really not the truth about me. What a revelation. To come into an understanding beginning at the age of 33. I was really lucky to find it at that early age, but how wonderful it is for our children, the Tankoffs, the Marolas, the whatevers, however many of us here have had children who come here to learn these truths. How wonderful is that? So you see, our thoughts are the seeds that bring forth the fruit of the Spirit, or the drama-filled experiences that create suffering and limitation. Two ways of being in life. We either have thoughts that bring forth the seeds and the fruit of life, or we create experiences in our lives that bring suffering. And that's really out of that ego mind that has these beliefs that we're not enough, that we're incapable, that we're unloving, or whatever it is. Now, I've been in the textbook a lot this week, and I found on page 144 that modern psychology, this is what Dr. Holmes writes, modern psychology affirms that all the thoughts and emotions we have experienced since we came into conscious existence are still present in mind. How scary is that? Oh. And then he says, where ceaselessly active, they manifest themselves as subjective tendencies that mold the body in health or sickness and determine as well our reactions to all life and experience. Oh my goodness. Are you kidding me? No wonder as I grew and became a young adult, that I found things in my life that were puzzling to me. Why is this happening to me? Blaming outer circumstances, blaming other people, finding fault, being critical then of myself and why am I not capable. But there I am. Modern psychology affirms that all the thoughts and emotions we have experienced since we came into conscious existence are still present in mind. So in my studies through this teaching and the admonition, know thyself, I've discovered several core beliefs that cause me to have subjective tendencies or patterns of thought caused by certain experiences from a very young age that determined what the law of attraction was drawing to me. And it happened right here in Chico, California, when I discovered the really core issue of my being. In the 1980s, we chartered this church in 1983. In 1984, we rented a little house over there on 8th Avenue, 8th and Salem, Magnolia, 8th and Magnolia. How many remember? 5 of us. Well, that little house became the office. That was in, no, excuse me, I have to go back. We chartered this church in November of 1983 and had the ceremony in January of 1984 at the Women's Club. And then one of our members retired from the real estate business. And she had a garage that she had used as her office, and she loaned that to us, the Chico Church of Religious Science, so that I could have an office and we could do our newsletter and everything out of there. And it was a wonderful place. It had everything I needed. It had a desk, it had typewriters, staples, pencils, paper clips. It was just wonderful. It had an IBM typewriter with a carbon reel, you know. I love that typewriter. But after several weeks, I started having trouble with the typewriter. That darn carbon ribbon would, you know, wrap itself around somehow, and I'd be sitting like this, trying to figure it out and get it wrapped back up, and I usually managed to do it, but it was an awful job. And I started swearing at the typewriter, which probably didn't help. But one day, the lady who had so generously given us this space free came in, and I was doing this. And she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, this typewriter does this all the time." And she said, "I swear you're a jinx." Subjective tendency. I felt like somebody had hit me in the stomach with a 2x4 or a fist or something. It was horrible. And she turned around and left. She kind of giggled and turned around and left, but I'm sitting there in stunned shock that someone would dare to call me a jinx. How in the world could that be? Here I am trying to build a church, and then she's telling me I'm a jinx? Wow. So I was so upset, I got up and left and thought I'd take a walk. I took about a 6-block walk, and nothing changed. I was so upset, I was angry. I was actually probably enraged, like I had never been before in my life. First time I had felt these feelings like this. So I finally just closed up the office, went home, And I told my husband, Dr. John McEwen, about it. And he said, well, it seems like you have a little problem. And I said, it's not my problem. Why did she do that to me? Why? I am not a jinx. And he said, well, babe, I think you have a problem. Well, that didn't help. I went to bed that night, didn't sleep much, got up the next morning, was still rattled, angry, upset. How dare that woman call me that? So that went on the rest of that day, and that evening my husband again said to me, babe, I think you have a problem, and you know how to fix it. I said, not this one. And he said, yes, you do. There's a power greater in you, and you can use it. It's greater than you are, and you can use it. So that night, I decided, well, maybe I better practice what I preach. Maybe I better do some spiritual mind treatment. Maybe I had better ask for help. And so I did. I asked to have revealed through me whatever it was that I needed to know about this feeling, this emotion that had taken such charge of me. I want to know what is the cause. Dr. Holmes says, find the cause. You must find the cause in order to have a healing. So I went to bed, slept very well, and I got up the next morning and started to walk out into the kitchen to have some coffee, but stopped dead in my tracks because I had a vision. It's the first vision I had ever had. It was amazing. You know, I closed my eyes to see if it would go away, and then I'd open it, and it was right out here. Eyes wide open, and this vision going in front of my head like a movie. And you know what it was? I was about 3 or 4 years old. It was Christmas time, and I had opened a package. And both my sister and I, we were 14 months apart, but we had received these dolls. They were about this big, almost as big as I was. And I carried that thing around, and I loved that baby doll. And at some point on that day, we had overstuffed furniture. This was in the 1939 or 40, something like that. A long time ago. Oh, jeez. Don't do the math. Or go ahead, I don't care. So I sat the doll on, straddling the corner of this round stuffed club chair. Turned my back, and she fell on the floor. And she cracked her hair. She had plaster hair. And I swear, here this image is me. I'm watching this in front of me. And I can see it right now. I can see the exact outline of how that plaster went on her head. And it was white, and the little honey blonde that was there was not. So, after I saw that, I thought, oh my God, what could that possibly, could I have jinxed that? Now, I know that a 4 or 5-year-old child, really 3, 4, 5, probably doesn't even know what a jinx is. Do you think? No. But somehow, and I questioned my mother about this later on in life after I discovered this. I said, Mom, do you think, and I told her the story, do you think that maybe you said something to me like I shouldn't have put my doll there, or somehow I got the idea that I was bad because that happened. And she said, oh, honey, it was Christmas Day. I just can't imagine doing that. And so I thought, well, if she didn't do it, then I must have done it to myself. Somehow. I blamed myself because I wasn't taking care of my baby doll. And so right then, that subjective tendency set into motion that caused suffering in my life until 1984. I was 40-something, 40-some years old, before I found a core belief that had been operating through me. And then what I found is that when I look back at my life, all of the ways that I had compensated to not be irresponsible, I became overly responsible. I had an exaggerated sense of responsibility for everything. I discovered somewhere along the way that if I got something new, a new dress, new shoes or whatever, that the minute I wore them, something would happen. Somebody would spill something on me. One time somebody was smoking and a wind came up and a flick of their spark from the cigarette landed on my new dress and it burned it. I mean, things, I made a list of the things and then I burned it up because I didn't want to remember it. This is a good way to cleanse, you know. So what I had to do after I had that vision is to create a spiritual practice that would help me empty this subjective tendency. It really wasn't an emptying, it was a resurrection of something new, dissolving that subjective tendency and bringing in something new. I needed to have a new idea about myself. And one of the things that I did was, in addition to a lot of spiritual mind treatment, was affirm a lot. I lead a charmed life. I had to embody something new. If I believed I was a jinx, then I needed to create something new for myself to really create a new core for my being. I lead a charmed life. And I included that in my spiritual mind treatments. I did meditations around that kind of thing. I lived, ate, slept, and dreamt that I led a charmed life. I lead a charmed life. Now, as soon as I have a drink, I'll tell you the rest. It's not vodka. So, as time went on, I began to notice there were changes. I bought china, and I still have it today. All the pieces. Before that, if I bought nice things, they'd get broken. I bought a set of crystal glasses that had the name Stephanie because I had a grandchild named Stephanie. And I thought, oh, I'll buy these and give them to her. Well, one by one, they were broken, and I didn't have anything left. But it was just because of that subjective tendency of that core belief that caused me to believe I wasn't capable, I didn't deserve, I wasn't worthy. Probably, I even believed I wasn't even lovable. And so, out of that charmed life, things began to look up for me. Things really began to change. And so there are just so many things that have happened since then. because I understand the core beliefs. And this is the reason I'm telling you this is because I think we're all sitting on core beliefs that somehow cause suffering in our lives. And if we're not aware, if we're not asking what it is that we need to do or to know, what do we need to know so that we can bring loving awareness and have healing and God's grace come into our lives so that there's something different, something new that's happening. It's up to us to do the changes. Now, a lot of people don't like to do this kind of work. They think, well, it's not practicing science of mind. You have to be positive. Well, let me tell you, if you've got core beliefs that are subjective tendencies that are causing suffering, there's going to be more. And I don't care how many treatments you do, what your spiritual practice is, as long as you're not working with the core issues that come up to be healed, then you'll stay the same. It'll be status quo. There might be some changes that happen, but it's a slower process. This stuff gets it going. Right, Connie? But you see, we have to be aware. There's been other core beliefs that I found. And it's hard for me to believe that I allowed a 3, 4, 5-year-old to run my life for so long. But if it's subjective, underneath conscious awareness, how are we going to know? And until we look at what's happening in our lives, if you want to know what you really believe, look at your life. Where is it not working? Where is it working? Praise that, give thanks for it, and then keep asking for what it is that you need to know that's causing these things that create distress, lack, limitation, or anything else that has been inhibiting for you, because we are expressions of an infinite spirit, a spirit that is almighty. It's boundless, it's limitless, and it's for each one of us. Rumi says that we need to live our lives as though it's rigged in our favor. Are you willing to live your life as though it's rigged in your favor? Well then, open, ask, is there anything in me at the subjective level that needs to be revealed? And I know that as it's revealed, I know exactly what I need to do and how to heal it. That's all we have to do. Be willing to be open and receptive to it. Now, I think human beings are a lot like Cyrus the Great. Did you know that when he was a baby, his grandfather, out of jealousy and fear that Cyrus would one day become the king, called a servant and charged him to take the baby away and destroy him? It was a ruthless tactic in the struggles of royal families in ancient times. But instead of slaying the baby, the servant gave him to a childless shepherd living in a distant province. Cyrus grew up supposing he was only a shepherd's son. One day he learned the truth that he was a prince of the royal family and heir to the throne of Persia. From the time he learned the truth, there was no minding the sheep for Cyrus. He broke the habit of being who he thought himself to be. Cyrus immediately began to fit himself to rule the kingdom, and eventually he did become king of Persia. Now, the turning point in his life was when he realized whose child he was. which was the first great step toward the fulfillment of his purpose in life. That story is a reminder to all of us that we too are children of the Most High God. But we have to wake up in order to claim our spiritual heritage. So remember the admonition, awake thou that sleepest, and Christ shall give you light. The Christ is the God individualized as each one of us. It's the consciousness of God as us. Christ is not Jesus the person, it's a principle. And it's alive and well in all of us. Now, Reverend Jill, I watched Reverend Jill's talk this past week, and which I thought was very good, and she talked about waking up in life. And then the motto for Centers for Spiritual Living, actually it was Religious Science International that first had it, was awakening humanity to its spiritual magnificence. And so we have to wake up to the self with a capital L, breaking the habit of being the small self, the one who believes things that aren't true. And so